Hello, thanks for being here, wherever you are in the world or in your day. As with so many things in life, like making pancakes, for example, sometimes the first try at something is a little rough. So I am recording this a little differently than I anticipated, but that's okay. This will be available for review later and always, obviously, as such is the nature of YouTube. So I am Laren. I am here to lead 30 Days of Sun, as I like to call it, or 30 Days of Sun Salutations, 30 minutes at a time. You can see my mat behind me. Go ahead and take a moment to get set up if you haven't already. All you need is you. I recommend a yoga mat or a fitness mat of any kind if you have one. If you're on a particularly hard surface, go ahead and place a blanket or towel underneath your knees to create extra padding as needed throughout practice. So I'll meet you on the mat in hands and knees, or what we call tabletop. Join me there. So in tabletop, we try to bring our knees right underneath the hips. Notice a nice stacking here, and then the same with wrists and shoulders. Think right angles, just like a table. Go ahead and sink your hips back toward your heels now, if that's all right for your knees. And just let your hands slide forward. Let's begin softly for our first day. You can rest your forehead on the mat, or you can stack both palms underneath your forehead, creating a nice little pillow. Begin to check in with your breath. Take any final fidgeting motions or make any last adjustments that you need to. I so often find I need to put my hair up so it's not in my face, distracting me, but sometimes it feels good to just let things be and see how that feels. So finish settling in, return to your child's pose. If this is intense on your knees, you can roll up a towel or blanket if you've already gotten one handy, and you can place that roll behind your knees to soften that space. So do what works for you. Be the boss of your own body. Don't do anything that hurts. Find your version of this pose or any other pose. Just take a moment to check in, listen to your breath, let it come naturally. I like to take my knees a little wider apart in child's pose and bring my feet close together behind me. This kind of opens up the space for my belly while I start to breathe. So inhale, fill up that space between your knees, in your lap, in your comfy little setup on your mat. Rest your forehead. Make a sigh out of your mouth on your next exhale. See if you can feel heavier. Inhale, let your belly fill up your lap space. So it might feel strange, but kind of inflate your tummy towards the floor as you inhale. And then notice as your back rises, as you fill up all the way with that breath. And then exhale, just sinking lower, dropping down. If you haven't, maybe rest your elbows and forearms on the mat. Take 2 more breaths here at your pace. Just noticing any areas of tightness or tension. Complete your breath cycle. And on your next inhale, walk your hands over to the left, maybe even off of your mat. Spread your fingers wide, ground your hands into the floor. Imagine making a can crushing motion, pressing into the floor with your right hand. You might feel long in your right armpit. Take a nice deep inhale, inflating that right rib cage. And exhale as you walk your hands back to center. Pause in child's pose. Inhaling again, walk your hands over to the right this time. Again, spreading your fingers wide, pressing down into the earth with both hands, both palms. Let your arms be active. Take another long inhale through your nose. Inflate your left rib cage this time. Maybe sigh it out again. Return to center or neutral. Lift your hips, return to tabletop, bringing hands underneath shoulders, resetting your knees. Imagine you're kneeling on imaginary railroad tracks, so your hands and knees are in alignment with each other, parallel on the mat. Again, see if you can feel heavy in your hands, really rooting down. Press the mat away. You might notice space between your shoulder blades as you do this. Do the same thing with your feet. Press the tops of your feet into the mat, your whole shins and knees. Take a full breath, just feeling steady here. Let it go. Looking at the mat in front of you between your hands, think again about bringing your belly toward the mat as you inhale, strange though it may feel. This creates a nice soft back bend in your back as you do so. Keep pressing the mat away with your hands though. This is what we call cow pose. Press the back of your head toward the ceiling. You might notice a little more space created again between your shoulder blades. Just take a breath here. Take another deep inhale, maybe stretching your belly a little more as you do so. Kind of scrubbing the mat towards your knees as you press the earth away. Now reverse this. Tuck your tail as you exhale. Start to round through your low back. Arch your high back like a Halloween cat and tuck your chin. Look at your lap. Notice that this shape makes it easy to press all the stale air out on the exhale. This is cat pose. Now see if you can find a flow between the two. Sink your belly button toward the mat on your next inhale and let that motion roll up your spine. So pressing the mat away again with your hands. Imagine you're going to tear it in half. Let this be active. Again, press the back of your head toward the ceiling and just look at the mat in front of you. Do this on the inhale and find your pace, find your way to cat pose again on the exhale, tucking your tail, arching your back, pressing the mat away with your hands to spread your shoulder blades wide as you look towards your knees, tucking your chin. Inhale, find a flow. Return to cow pose. Belly sinks towards the mat. Exhale, tuck your tail, arch your back. Cat pose. Press your feet into the mat again, the tops of them if they like to come unglued. This is just a nice way to warm up for any yoga class or sequence. I like cat-cow pose because it helps me tap into my breath. It helps me begin to pair my breath with my movement. Another tool commonly used in yoga that you might begin to employ now if you'd like is what we call the ujjayi breath. And to practice this is to just create sort of a sighing sound or a whisper sound in the back of your throat as you inhale and exhale. It's easiest for me to think about this first on the exhale, as though you were going to clean your sunglasses. So you're going to kind of huff your breath on them to then wipe them with your shirt or a clean cloth. So see if you can bring that sort of hissing quality, that sighing, that whisper, that ha into both the inhale and the exhale as you move. So we'll see after this recording is done whether or not you can hear my breath. But I'll practice that for a couple rounds as we continue this cat-cow pose for just a little longer. So exhaling in a cat pose. Inhaling to cow. Last round. Return to a neutral spine. You can continue breathing with this ujjayi breath as you'd like throughout practice, just to stay grounded, just to stay present, just to remember that you're breathing on purpose. Ujjayi is often called ocean breath. I hope you're able to hear me practice that just a little bit in cat-cow. Go ahead and take another child's pose. Hips drop back toward heels. We won't be here long, but let it be luxurious anyway. Noticing the sound of your breath still. And by the way, as we continue to move through Sun Salutation A for the next few minutes, you may find it's helpful to keep your blanket there for knee cushion, or you might like to move it out of your way so that you have maximum mat traction available. You do you. I'm going to move mine, as you can see. But also remember that cat-cow warm-up that we just did and return to it throughout the sequence at any time if that is a more comfortable place to be. I often find in sun salutations that my breath gets quicker, I get very warm, and sometimes lightheaded if I don't slow myself down. So don't feel like you have to keep up with me as I guide these movements. But also, if I'm moving too slow for you and you know where we're going, you move at your own pace, just like with your breath. So with that in mind, come on up from your child's pose if you haven't already. And I find that child's pose is an easy way to make my way up to standing from. So with your hands still gripping the mat in front of you, still kneeling, come up onto your knees so that you can tuck your toes. Now, with your hips over your heels, notice you're like a little spring. So press into your hands, send your hips toward the sky. Maybe pause in a downward facing dog to stretch the backs of your legs. I like to extend my right heel toward the mat, bending my left knee. And then switching sides, pedaling out or walking my dog. So bending my right knee and extending my left heel toward the mat. Find your way to a forward fold. So walk your hands and feet to meet. And just let yourself hang from your hips. If the backs of your legs are tight, like mine are this morning, bend your knees and just rest your upper body, your whole torso on your lap. You can take opposite elbow and opposite hand here. And just let your head hang. Nodding yes. Shaking no.
acknowledging the power in both. Take another nourishing breath in, filling up, inhaling, noticing how it feels different in this upside down shape. And exhale, sigh it out, let it go. Release your hands if they're holding elbows, let them hang. And prepare to roll up to a standing position, but do this slowly. Imagine rooting your feet into the mat so much that you might even tear it in half between them. See if this helps you stand up a little more. Rolling up one vertebrae at a time, just letting hands and head hang. Taking a slow inhale through your nose, trying to avoid any lightheadedness as we change from being on the floor to standing and moving more in general. Let your head be the last to lift. Come up onto your heels. Your toes. Come up on your toes, lifting your heels. Now do what I first said. Come up on your heels, lifting your toes. You might see mine peel up off the floor. Return to flat feet. Notice steadiness there. Take a soft bend or bounce in your knees, noticing whether or not it's your tendency to hyperextend them. So don't lock them, just let them be soft. Bring your hands to your hips. If you're able, find your front hip points with your peace fingers and reach with your thumbs toward the back hip points. See if you can notice the kind of box that those 4 points create on your pelvis. And notice that you can tip them forward, tipping your front hip points toward the floor. This creates that same arch in your back like we did in cow pose. Or you can tuck your tail and kind of shrink your belly, bringing your ribs and front hip points closer together, scooping your tail under. Notice what that does to your posture. Now find neutral between the two. So play with that a little bit. And same thing from side to side. Notice that it's easy to sort of dump weight into one leg, which changes how level those hip points are, both in the front and in the back. So find level from side to side and from front to back. Hopefully you're feeling just a little more stable. Take a breath in and grow a little taller. Imagine creating space between your belly button and your sternum. Release your hands to your sides. Let your palms shine forward. Maybe active fingers spread wide. Take another breath in. Broaden your chest. So shrug your shoulders up to your ears. Roll them back and down. Imagine sliding your shoulder blades down your rib cage on your back, reaching your fingers closer to the floor. Let your collarbones smile if that imagery works for you. Lift your chin and also imagine tucking it, so sending your head back in space just a little bit. See if you can become 3% taller, just thinking tall thoughts. This is mountain pose. Hopefully you feel very strong and grounded and adjusted to standing and ready to move from here. Let your breath go, exhaling where you are. Inhale, reach now, hands overhead, thinking tall thoughts still. Maybe your palms touch as you hinge at your hips and dive forward. Find that forward fold again, remembering you have the option to bend your knees and rest on your lap. Support yourself. Let your head hang. If it feels good, imagine shining the backs of your knees towards maybe a wall behind you, just lengthening your legs any amount. Again, they don't have to be straight. They don't have to look like mine. You do you. Inhaling again, bring your hands to your shins as you half lift. See if you can find a flat back here. So kind of neutralizing any curve in your low back, trying to find what feels flat, pressing your head toward the ceiling. Maybe as you do this, you find your hands want to slide up to your lap instead of your shins. Nice half lift. Exhale, lead with your heart, bending, hinging again for a forward fold. Inhale, rolling up faster than before, but still slowly, taking your time. Nice, let's do that again. Inhale, hands lift. Maybe palms touch as you hinge at your hips, diving forward for a fold. Let your hands hang. Nod your head yes. Hands to shins or thighs as you half lift. Inhale. Think those tall thoughts, even though you're making kind of this number 7 with your body. Exhale, sink your heart towards the floor. Reach with your hands towards the floor, folding again. Now plant your hands, walk with them, sending them away from your feet, leaving your hips high in the air. Experiment with your stance here. Find a downward facing dog. You can bring your hands wider apart, maybe bringing your pinkies to the outer edges of your mat. You can do the same thing with your feet, bringing pinky toes to the outer edges of your mat. Notice if this helps you feel more stable, less likely to fall over from one side to the other. If you'd like more challenge, though, you have the opposite option, bringing hands and feet, either or both, closer together in center. I like to find a nice medium place, but where my hands and feet go is probably different every time. So taking any adjustments you need to, press into all of your finger pads and all of your knuckle mounds. Imagine gluing your whole hands to the mat. Take a breath here. Inhale, noticing the extra work your diaphragm is doing while you're upside down. Exhaling, letting that go. Good work. Bring your knees to the mat, finding something like tabletop that we began with, but now shifting your hips forward. So you're in kind of a plank pose, but your knees are on the floor. Take a breath here. Let it go. See if you can keep your elbows in close, skimming your rib cage as you sink your chest toward the floor all the way to your belly. Inhale, peel up from your chest. So just lift up your shoulders and look at the mat in front of you. This is baby cobra. Exhale, peel down. Maybe touch your nose on the mat. Inhale, peel up, and this time look over your right shoulder. You don't have to press yourself up very hard with your hands. Just let your breath lift you. Let your back muscles lift you. Exhale, unwind. Look at the mat in front of you. Inhale, peel up. Look over your left shoulder. Nice work. Exhale, peel down. On your next inhale, press into your hands. Send your hips up and back toward your heels, child's pose. Take a breath here. Notice how you feel from moving. And shift forward. I like to come onto my forearms, just enough to tuck my toes. Press into your hands. Let your arms be active. Imagine tearing the mat in half. Send your hands and feet away so much that your hips lift. Downward facing dog. Walk your hands and feet together. Find a forward fold. Exhale here. Inhale, roll up to standing. And pause in your firm mountain pose. Congratulations, you just moved through Sun Salutation A, which includes a vinyasa. A vinyasa is a sequence that connects one point of downward facing dog to another. So it's an extra few poses that let you build a little extra warmth. So if moving through this sequence is too much for you, when we go down to the floor, just find tabletop and move through a cycle of cat-cow. But if you're enjoying this, join me for another round. Get grounded again, maybe shifting forward and back in your feet until they feel flat. Bouncing in your knees, thinking tall thoughts, finding level hips and broad chest. Take a full breath through your nose. Inhale deep. Exhale, let that go. Press it out. Inhale, hands lift. Maybe palms touch. Dive forward, hinge at your hips, forward fold. Inhale to half lift. Flat back, hands to shins or lap. Exhale, fold, lead with your heart. Walk your hands forward away from your feet. Pause with your hips high, find downward facing dog. Take a breath in. Exhale, let it go. Shift forward for plank this time. I usually have to wiggle my feet back a little bit to make that happen. Notice if your hands are still directly under your shoulders. You can stay here if you'd like more activity, or you can drop your knees for a softer option. Again, keep your elbows in close as you sink your chest and belly toward the floor for a yogi push-up, or what we call chaturanga. Untuck your toes, press the tops of your feet into the mat. Inhale, press your belly into the mat, maybe so much that your chest lifts. Find baby cobra again. Squeeze your shoulder blades together behind you. Exhale, peel down. Inhale, press up and back, find child's pose. Exhale here. Inhale, come forward, tuck your toes. Active arms and hands and feet apart so that hips lift. Find downward facing dog. Inhale here, maybe pedal your heels again. Walk hands and feet to meet in a forward fold. Inhale, roll up. Find standing one more time. Let's do that one more time. Inhale, hands lift, reach high overhead. Palms touch, hinge at your hips, dive forward for folding. Inhale, half lift. Exhale to fold, lead with your heart. Maybe it's easier to use that ujjayi breath we talked about at the beginning. Walk your hands away from your feet. Find downward facing dog with your hips high in the air. Deep breath in. Big breath out. Shift forward so your shoulders come over your wrists. Option to stay here for extra effort or drop your knees for extra softness. Keep your elbows in close as you sink belly and chest between your hands, coming all the way to the mat. Untuck your toes. Inhale, lift your chest for cobra. Exhale, peel down. Send your hips to your heels. Find child's pose. Deep breath in. Come forward to tuck your toes. Send your hips to the sky with springy legs and active hands glued to the mat. Downward facing dog. Walk your hands and feet to meet. Pause in a fold. Inhale, roll up, rooting through your feet to lift, to feel tall. I hope you enjoyed this first round, this day 1 of 30 days of sun salutations. Thank you for joining me. I'll be back for more technological advancement tomorrow morning as I will sort through some technical difficulties, but I'm excited to share more of this sequence with you. Thanks so much. I'll see you soon.